All right. Up next, we're going to have Jackson Carr, who will speak on Western Blackduck political boundaries versus archaeological realities.
All right, can everybody see that and hear me all right?
Yep, sounds great.
Excellent. Well, hello everyone. My name is Jackson Carr. I'm a second-year master's student at the University of Calgary. And today I'm just going to be presenting a little bit, kind of a bird's eye view of my thesis research as it concerns Western Minnesota and the Northeastern Plains. So, what is Blackduck and why are its boundaries interesting? Blackduck is a late woodland archaeological entity. The term entity is used here because Blackduck encapsulates both a culture complex and a ceramic complex in Minnesota, Ontario, and parts of Manitoba. Blackduck's also really hard to boil down to kind of a concise archaeological definition because it expands over such a large geographic range that subsistence systems vary widely throughout those areas. A black duck site is identified primarily by the ceramics found at it. There are an array of companion artifacts that are associated with black duck outside of these ceramics, but it's primarily highly decorated cord-wrap stick impressed ceramics like this picture here. As you can see, cord-wrap sticks encircle the vessel all around the rim, on top of the lip, in addition with punctates that encircle the vessel as well. As I noted, Blackduck expands over a pretty large geographic range. Here's a distribution map showing two of the proposed ranges for Blackduck previously cited in the literature. It expands through Michigan, Ontario, Minnesota, Manitoba, and into parts of Saskatchewan. Curiously enough, however, none of these maps really dip into North Dakota. I was fortunate enough to do my undergraduate degree at Minnesota State University Moorhead. I grew up in North Dakota my whole life. And so looking at these maps, I understood that Western Minnesota and Southwestern Manitoba are not that different from Northeastern North Dakota. And that led to the question of, are these distribution maps a product of geopolitical bounds of archaeologists? Are communities of archaeologists in Minnesota and Manitoba kind of confined in their work by political boundaries? Or does this distribution map accurately represent the archaeological reality of Blackduck? Is there just no Blackduck in Northeastern North Dakota? This is a simple enough question to test. All of the Blackduck sites that are labeled as such in Western Minnesota and North Dakota were gathered together, and then the ceramics labeled as Blackduck at those sites were analyzed to see if they were consistent with the known companion of Blackduck ceramics throughout its range. To accomplish this, kind of a refined definition of what Blackduck ceramics are had to be arrived at. There are extensive typologies created for Blackduck within its kind of core area, and the types encompass all sorts of variation within Blackduck. But for this research, you really just need one solid definition of what is the most basic Blackduck pot that you can find. I arrived at three primary traits for this. A Blackduck vessel at its most basic has horizontal cord-wrap stick impressions, oblique cord-wrap stick impressions on the rim, and punctates encircling. That's kind of baseline decoration for Blackduck. In addition, two other traits were selected in case a small rim sherd was encountered that did not yield horizontal cord-wrap stick impressions or punctates. And these additional criteria include lip surface cord-wrap stick impressions and a wedged and flared rim profile. So it's mostly decorative, but there are some sort of construction elements of Blackduck that help define it as well. Here's another example of a Blackduck vessel. As you can see, cord-wrap stick impressions everywhere, punctates, and here are two rim profiles for Blackduck vessels from Western Minnesota. As you can see, they're wedged or have thickening towards the lip, and they're both moderately out flaring. The process of collecting sites yielded 19 analyzable ceramic collections in total across Western Minnesota and North Dakota. There are 21 sites included in the analysis in total. Flaming Arrow and Minokan in central North Dakota were included as they are one of the only labeled late woodland ceramic complexes in North Dakota. So they were included for comparison reasons, but primarily sites from eastern North Dakota and Minnesota were added in the analysis. The ceramics from these sites varied widely, and majority went from great blackduck in the west to slowly declining in what you would call blackduck as you move east in North Dakota. So 21 CY39 is a site in Minnesota located east of the town of Moorhead. This is great blackduck, horizontal and oblique quarter-up stick impressions, punctates, wedged and flared profiles. It's all great. The Skirdall site is located in Marshall County along the Snake River. Again, a great example of blackduck, although it was a little bit smaller sample than 21 CY39. As you move kind of north and east or north and west in Minnesota, you get some smaller samples, but still good blackduck. The Slininger Mound site has a blackduck occupation near it. And KT 107 is in Kitson County along the two rivers, and again, is good blackduck by definition. Moving into North Dakota, there begins kind of a noticeable decline in the number of blackduck sites present. 32 PB66 is located in Pembina County in the town of Walhalla. This is blackduck by definition, but it doesn't look like what everybody thinks a blackduck rim would look like. The quarter-wrap stick impressions are a little bit odd. The punctates are shallow. The rim profile isn't exactly out-flaring, but by all the criteria, this is a blackduck rim. 32 RY77 is on Devil's Lake in North Dakota. This is the best blackduck site in North Dakota. There are two definitively blackduck rims, including one that follows all of the kind of typological normative expectations of blackduck, in addition to miniature vessels. So this is good blackduck in North Dakota. 32 CS 4899 is located along the Maple River. This is the southernmost occurrence of blackduck in North Dakota, and it is just a single rim. There's not blackduck for 100 kilometers in any direction in North Dakota, but again, by the terms and definitions used for this analysis, this is an occurrence of blackduck in North Dakota. Now, moving east, all of the ceramics change away from what we would typically consider blackduck. And it's worth bearing in mind that the sites that I'm about to show you ceramics from were at one time called blackduck, either in like gray literature generated from cultural resource management or generalized published reports from these sites. So the Kirschman 3 site is located along the James River. It had an extensive, blackduck ceramic collection drawn from the lower levels of excavation. These sherds have quarter-wrap stick impressions. They're not really quarter-wrap stick impressions. They're moving more towards a stamping sort of impression, something that Dr. George Hawley calls beads on a string, because it kind of looks like quarter-wrap stick, but it's not exactly a quarter-wrap stick. The Kirschman 3 site also has a lot of bossing in the ceramic assemblage, and this is a minor component of blackduck, but you don't get exclusive bossing within blackduck assemblages. So both of these rims also have a vertical and non-thickened profile. So the Kirschman 3 site, by definition, is not blackduck. Bieber site is another example from the James River region. This vessel was at one time called a Blackduck Sandy Lake hybrid, kind of early on in the analysis period. But again, it's bossed, it's cord marked all the way to the lip, which is kind of unique for blackduck, and the rim profile, not wedged or out flaring. So not blackduck. More collections of non-blackduck in North Dakota include the Bailey collection. That's sort of a private collection centered around the Cheyenne Bend region. It looks promising at first, but a little bit more investigation of the sherd indicates that its rim profile is inconsistent with the blackduck type. The Lake Coast site is more kind of working towards unidentified late woodland that was called blackduck in this area. As you can see, neither of these sherds are kind of definitively blackduck, but they were kind of pushed towards that classification out of kind of need. The Mandan Overlook site is located along the Missouri River. This was one that was labeled in the North Dakota State Historic Society database as Blackduck, but an analysis of the sherds kind of revealed more of that interesting kind of punctate and cord wrap tool impressed rather than cord wrap stick impressed ceramic. So again, not Blackduck. This leaves us with an ability to kind of move around the boundaries that have been proposed for Blackduck previously in their southwestern ranges. So previously in Minnesota, the boundary had been pushed down low, almost to the kind of the border between North Dakota and South Dakota. We can now scoot that up a little bit. If you draw a line from the top of Middle Ox to the top of Wilkin County in Minnesota, below that line, there's really no definitive presence of Blackduck. North of that line, as you move north, Blackduck collections get purer and purer in the sense that there's less intrusion of other late woodland banded wares present. And if we move to the west in North Dakota, Blackduck is confined primarily to the northeastern parts of the state. If you draw a line sort of along the eastern bank of the Cheyenne River under Devil's Lake and meeting the Canadian border at the Souris River, there's good Blackduck north and east of this line. And not good Blackduck south and west of this line. This kind of left a question open. What do we do with all the ceramics that are not Blackduck south and west of this boundary in North Dakota? If you gather them all together and step back and take a look at them, it's possible to group them into rough groups with dates that can allow a definition of a new ceramic ware for the late woodland period in North Dakota. I chose to title this Coteau ware based on Joseph Niglet's drainage maps of the North Dakota region. He labels a number of coteaux in the area, and that was a selected name. Coteau ware dates from roughly 980 to 1280, so kind of the terminal late woodland period. Vessels are subconoidal to globular of morphology, and rim forms are vertical to slightly verted instead of thickened and outflaring like Blackduck. There are two primary types for Coteau ware. Kirschman composite and Bailey banded. Kirschman composite was defined based on the presence of a number of bossed rims in the James Valley area. Decoration is consistent with bossing on the upper rim and horizontal and oblique cord wrap stick impressions that are closer to stamping impressions. There are 3 sites contained within this type throughout North Dakota, and this is an example of a Kirschman composite rim. Bailey banded captures all of the variation that's present in horizontal cord wrap stick impressed ceramics in southwestern or southeastern North Dakota. So the Kirschman 3 site is included in this, the Bailey collection, those kind of banded cord wrap stick impressed rims that I showed previously kind of all fall within the Bailey banded category of Coteau ware. And this is an example of a Bailey banded rim from the Kirschman 3 site. It has cord wrap stick impressions and a vertical rim profile. So where does this leave us? There are 2 conclusions we can arrive at here. One pertains to Blackduck in the northeastern plains, and the other pertains to the North Dakota late woodland period. A small but definable presence of Blackduck exists in western Minnesota and northeastern North Dakota, though the quantity of Blackduck tapers significantly as you enter into North Dakota. Blackduck in this area, I propose it to be subsumed within the blue stem phase, which is a previously proposed late woodland phase for the Red River Valley and areas adjacent. This is characterized by small Blackduck habitation and campsites where bison is the primary resource utilized in these areas. It typically occurs along inset valleys in Minnesota and may or may not be associated with mounds along those inset valleys. The North Dakota late woodland period, from a ceramic perspective, it's characterized by transitional to terminal late woodland ceramics. There's really no solid late woodland period in North Dakota. It's mostly early stuff, St. Croix ware, transitioning to terminal late woodland ceramics that kind of abut directly with northeastern Plains Village transition periods. Connections to the east are apparent in some of the ceramics, but don't overshadow the fact that there's in situ ceramic development in these areas represented by these unique ceramics. There are 2 phases that Coteau ware can fall into. Sandhills is kind of the transitional late woodland period, and the Lucas phase is that terminal late woodland period right before the Northeastern Plains Village life kind of kicks off in this area. So North Dakota does have ceramics in the late woodland period, but they're not exactly what we would think of as traditional late woodland ceramics. I do need to thank some people for helping fund my research: the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, the University of Calgary Faculty of Graduate Studies, and importantly, the Riaz Malik Research Grant Program that's put on by the Council for Minnesota Archaeology funded a large portion of my research in Minnesota. The North Dakota State Historic Society and archive staff were a huge help, in addition to the Minnesota Historical Society staff. They were invaluable conducting my research on curated collections at their facilities. Finally, Dr. George Hawley has been instrumental in helping me work my way through all these unique ceramics. And my advisor at the U of C, Dr. Andrea Freeman, has provided a lot of guidance along the way. Thank you for listening.